All right, good morning and welcome, my fellow Missoulians, to City Club Missoula's October 2024 Forum on Meet the Candidates for County Commissioner. I'm Dave Peppinger. I have the privilege and honor of serving as chair of the City Club Missoula's Board of Directors. Thank you all for being here today. City Club's mission is to bring people together to inform and inspire them on vital issues in our community through public forums that encourage the discussion of new ideas and free exchange of thought. We have a deep commitment to civility and civil discourse, even when discussing challenging questions. Before getting into the forum, let me give some sincere thank yous. Thanks to Missoula Community Access Television, which records our forums as part of our media access grants to nonprofit organizations. MCAT serves our community on cable channels 189 and 190. MCAT also streams on their Facebook page, Missoula's Community Media Resource. The local live no longer exists. You can also find videos of our past City Club Missoula forums by clicking on the video button on our website, cityclubmissoula.com. A special thank you to our sponsors, those at the executive level. They are Blackfoot Communications and First Security Bank. Our executive level sponsors are key partners in helping to expand audience access and public awareness of upcoming forums. We are grateful to all of our sponsors and we invite you to join. And of course, thanks to our board of directors, and I couldn't go without saying thank you to Jenny Rohrbach, our administrator. We wouldn't have this without her. So today, what I do is I will introduce the moderator, and then the moderator will introduce the candidates. So our moderator for today's panel is the infamous, notorious Peter Christian. He has the honor of introducing our panelists for today's forum. So after recently celebrating his 50th year in radio, Peter Christian has been sharing his radio news with Missoula since 1889. Just recently stepped down from Missoula, or from the Montana Morning News, to focus exclusively on KGVO Talkback Show with Nick Christensen, a program which both of our candidates have taken part in. Peter has won 25 first place E.B. Craney Awards for Best State Newscasts and Best News Stories, more than any other Montana radio broadcaster. Great job. He also operates Peter Christian Communications, his own radio copywriting and commercial production business, and has clients in Montana, Louisiana, Tennessee, Florida, and Boston. His great passion, though, in addition to being Lorna's husband, Luke and Jenna's dad, and a new grandpa, is having the honor of being public address announcer for University of Montana Grizzlies for the past 27 years. In addition to that, I don't know if people have been to the commencement ceremonies at the University of Montana, but you'll often hear his voice there. He has actually announced both my kids' graduations as well as mine. With that, Peter Christian.
You must have snuck your name in there because I don't remember. All right. Well, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate it. First thing I'm going to do is read the bios of each of our candidates. Josh Slotnick, he's the incumbent. He's an alum of the University of Montana. He completed a post-grad program at UC Santa Cruz as a master's degree from Cornell. He co-founded Garden City Harvest and the Peas Farm, and has spoken widely nationally and internationally on food, farming, and community development. He's written multiple articles, book chapters, and 2 books. He received the Missoula Peacemaker of the Year Award for his work, the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter Partnership Award, and the Fellows Alumni Impact Award from the U.S. State Department. He was elected to the Missoula County Commission in 2018. Josh Slotnick. And his challenger, Kris Culdice. Mr. Culdice grew up in the Northwest and attended school here in Montana. He graduated from the University of Montana with 2 Bachelor of Science degrees, one in finance, the other in management. Kris decided once school ended to put down roots in Missoula County. He's married and has 4 healthy sons. Now living in Frenchtown, Kris operates many businesses as a broker owner. He decided to run as county commissioner to fix Missoula County's budget problems and to get the county back on track. Kris Culdice, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open the floor to our candidates, and each one will have an opportunity to have 7 minutes of opening remarks. We're going to start with the incumbent, Josh Slotnick.
All right. Thanks a lot, Peter. If ever there was a voice of Missoula, it's Peter Christian. Can we do that one more time? Thank you. And thanks to City Club for hosting this event. I am a stalwart attendee of these things. I come every month. I love the discussions, the insightful questions, and truthfully the sense of community that comes from wrestling with hard issues together. So as I want to dive in here, I'm going to expand on a couple things in that introduction, which I really appreciate. The first one, typically people in this position, standing in front of a big group asking for support, describe their multi-generational lineage. I am absolutely from this place, but far more importantly, I am of this place. Not just that I went to the U of M, but all of the work of my life, Garden City Harvest, the Peas Farm, 30 years of a family business, being a county commissioner, all of these things happened by the grace of this place. Deep to my bones, I am here and always will be. Second thing I want to expand on, right after college, I left the U of M. I began service to the United States in the U.S. Peace Corps. And I cut my teeth on community development in the Peace Corps and really picked up 2 things. And I'm bringing up these 2 things because you will see them in the rest of what I have to say, and hopefully you see them in my work. So the first thing, if you get involved in community development, the first thing you do is learn. In the Peace Corps, that meant learning the language. Doing my current job, it also means learning the language of the specific problem you're addressing, diving in fearlessly, not being afraid to learn in public. Keep asking questions. The first responsibility is to deeply understand. The second thing, if you want to do good projects, do good work, know that you don't do anything by yourself. Nobody does. In fact, the way to get there is by finding other people, other institutions, other organized groups who are doing good work, and then you throw your effort alongside them, shoulder to shoulder. You bring to those efforts brain power, muscle, access to capital, grant writing, Peter Christian. You bring whatever you got. So I'm going to talk for a moment about one area that I've been working in that is emblematic of how I operate. And if you're considering, should I vote for this guy? This is what you'll get when I describe this. And hopefully you see a rhyme with my past in community development. And of course, if you know me at all, you know I'm going to talk about property taxes. Some of you may have been victimized by my explanations from Bob has on property taxes. So I'm going to start this brief story back in 2023. I'm choosing 2023 because the state is on a 2-year reappraisal cycle, and our last reappraisal was in 2023, which is why we saw such a big shift then. We'll see it again in 2025. So in 2023, we at the county increased the amount of money we would collect in property taxes from the county as an entirety, not any one person, one business, forest, or farm, but the county as an entirety, by a little more than 5%, which at the time was less than the rate of inflation. Less than the rate of inflation. So that should beg 2 questions. At least 2 questions should come to mind. If you know much at all about county government, you know that we take care of a couple hundred miles of roads. We have one of the biggest and probably the best jails in the state. We have a super high functioning health department. We have nearly 1,100 employees. We are forever buying things like asphalt, and concrete and Romex and lumber and gasoline and electricity, and we buy all these things out on the open market to keep this operation afloat, how can we be out there in the open market buying these things at the full rate of inflation when it appears that our revenue source comes in at less than the rate of inflation? Those two numbers, it just doesn't match. Well, we're able to remain afloat by keeping property taxes below the rate of inflation because 2/3 of the money we spend, a full 2/3, does not come from local property tax sources. Next big question that should jump to mind: if we raised taxes by 5%, which was less than the rate of inflation, how come people's taxes went up by 20%, 30%? This is crazy. How could you put these two things together? And that's because that burden, that 5% increase, was not spread proportionally, was not spread fairly among all residents. Homeowners and renters paid the giant brunt of it. So what is a county commissioner to do? The state writes the rules on property taxes. What are we to do? Well, the first thing I did, and hopefully you'll see the rhyme here, was I dove in super hard and learned all I could and became an expert on property taxes. And it took a while because this stuff is dense. Then after learning this, the next thing I did was find people who are working on this issue and went and worked with them. And given that I'm a county commissioner, that meant working with the Montana Association of Counties, also called MACO. Now, you all know we live in a partisan world, and MACO is a decidedly Republican organization. There's like 150 some odd Republican county commissioners and like 8 Democrats. They put me on their tax committee. I worked shoulder to shoulder with Mike McGinley from Beaverhead County, a true leader on this issue. He led the fight against the governor and the 95 mills. I won't describe it, I promise you. You'd all be asleep. And I worked with Joe Briggs from Cascade County. Together, Joe Briggs and I went and testified at the Interim Committee on Local Government before the legislature. And through partisan eyes, that would look almost ridiculous. How could me and Joe Briggs be together? But we were shoulder to shoulder because this is not a partisan issue. And we were heard. Evidence for some of this being heard is that this year at the Montana Association of Counties conference, MACO passed 2 policy resolutions on property taxes. These policy resolutions could become bills, bills become laws, laws could equal change, only because, in part, because nobody does anything all alone, but only because, in part, I made it my job to become an expert on this really difficult issue, then sought out people who were effective and worked alongside them, and I expect we'll see real change. Might not happen this session, might take another 2 years, but we're going to get there, and I'm going to die trying. So thanks for your time.
And now for your opening statement, Kris Culdice.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Missoula City Club, and thank you, attendees, people that aren't part of Missoula City Club. My name is Kris Culdice. Like Peter said, I live out here. A little bit about myself. I come from a background of business owners. My father is a man who ran at one time 500 individuals out of a beauty salon area in Washington State. He understands what business is. And so as a child, I learned through him. And so my brother and I, as we grew older, we decided that that's something that we would look into, is running businesses. So my brother has one up in Kalispell that I help him run as well. It's a manufacturing plant. Down here, I am a broker. I'm also an investor, and runs construction company down here as well. So business is what I look at. I look at budget, I look at numbers, and what I see here locally upsets me because I don't think our money's being spent properly. And as a taxpayer, as a property owner, I want to see my money being used properly. So that's the reason why I'm running. I went to the University of Montana here. I used to box at the Wilma. I used to play rugby for the University of Montana. I like to get competitive. That's the type of person I am. And I feel that this job needs somebody that's competitive, needs somebody that's aggressive, because I feel a lot of our debts as a county need to be renegotiated. I feel there's a lot of new strategies that need to be implemented. It sounds like Josh is very passionate, which I definitely appreciate. But one of the things that I am passionate about too, as a broker owner, real estate, is property taxes, because I used to be the biggest foreclosure dealer in 08, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I took a lot of people's homes from them because of either FEMA expansion, either they couldn't afford their homes because they lost their job, they refinanced too much, or they just stopped paying their mortgage. And so I went on the flip side of that to try to help out a lot of these property owners. So I renegotiated a lot of their debts, and I was able to help them walk away free and clear without going through foreclosure. So with that being said, I look at our current debt, our current budget, and our budget right now has not been audited in the past 3 years. So that upsets me dearly. We are spending money without an audited budget. I heard that the budget was supposed to be audited in the springtime, but that did not happen. If I am elected, I will stop spending money frivolously. I will close that as fast as I can. I don't appreciate our money being spent the way it is. I also believe Marshall Mountain should be sold. I believe a lot of government assets should probably be sold, because I don't think the government is in the job of owning businesses as like the water company. I know we don't, but I don't believe we should be owning businesses. So Marshall Mountain will be one that will be sold, and I'd like to put that money back into the coffers of the taxpayer. And when it comes to taxpayers, I'd like to see our tax system overhauled, and I'd like to see us have a stabilized tax system that is basically fixed. It increases at a 1% rate each year, but that way we would keep it stabilized. Yes, the legislation, Democrat and Republican, have not done a favorable job to us, the homeowners. We have a property now, properties now are being reassessed at every 2 years. They were at 6. Some of the people don't understand math. It's an average of numbers. We need to actually be at 7 years for an assessment. That puts us through a good presidency. That puts us through either a recession or a really good time in the economy. And that helps out with the property values. As Josh said, we'll be reassessed in 2025. And if it stays current or things continue to go up, yes, you will see an increase in your property taxes. So I would like to stabilize in Missoula County and show the state what we can do here in Missoula County, and stand as a beacon of hope so that the governor, whether it's Greg or the new one, can look at us and say, hey, we need to fix the property tax in all of Montana and not have it go up like it is right now. So that is why I am running. I want to be able to see my 4 boys be able to afford homes here, and so I would like to see things stabilized, and that's why I'm running.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question of both of you, the same question for both of you. And so you can either use this microphone or the one where you're sitting, however you feel most comfortable. And the question is this. We all acknowledge the fact that the county's expenses, and therefore our taxes, are going to increase every year. However, one aspect of county government I seldom hear about is how you plan to cut county spending. I would like each of you to propose 2 ways for the county to cut spending in order to save some of the taxpayers' hard-earned money. First, we'll ask incumbent Josh Slotnick.
Thanks a lot, Peter, for that question. And before I dive in on this, I do want to just point out that we are caught up on our audits, and our next one is due December 31st, and we will get that one done as well. So we are caught up on our audits. So in terms of, you said as expenses go up, our taxes go up. In 2023, we raised taxes at less than the rate of inflation. In real dollars, they did not go up. The same thing happened this year. Year over year, we are less than the rate of inflation. That means we did go backwards. We did successfully cut. What we did was we said no to nearly $2 million in asks. That's a cut. We said no. And we strive for saving things, big expenses like asphalt, which is crazy expensive. What we do now is we use millings. So we work with MDT. When MDT is chewing up some highway to resurface it, we scoop those things up, transport them to where we're going to use them, and put them down and turn crummy dirt roads into roads that don't make dust anymore. It's like 85% of a paved road. But this is much cheaper than actually paving. This is a cut. And this is routinely how we do business. Always looking at who can we partner with to share expenses. And then the last piece of this, I said it before, but I want to say it again. When you say expenses and property taxes, those are linked, but not nearly as tightly as a person would think, given that 2/3 of the money we spend does not come from property taxes. So if you see the county doing something out in the world, the greatest likelihood is that money came from some other source than local property taxes, a full 2/3. And when we are counting a new expense, something that has to be done, our first look is towards some other way to come up with that revenue, which typically is grants from the state or the feds or philanthropy or fee for service. That's how we do business. Thanks.
Mr. Culdice, the same question, please.
Like I said, the first thing I want to do is I want to sell Marshall Mountain. Right now, the county has hired 3 individuals with salary pay of about $70,000 a year. That's $210,000. That doesn't need to be paid to individuals to figure out what to do with a mountain. We're already paying to maintain it, and the city also helps out too. And the city just came out, and I think they paid about $160,000 just this last year to maintain Marshall Mountain, and I know the county does too. And do we happen to have those numbers on that budgeted audit? Yeah. Okay, so there is a cost to maintain. So get rid of the mountain, then we won't have to pay the maintenance costs. We won't have to pay the individuals who we've hired salaries to figure out what to do with the mountain. That's number one. Number two, the county road works. I agree 100% with them fixing the roads. What I don't agree with is the county basically becoming their own road construction company. That way then, if they're their own road construction company, which they are basically now, we're paying unemployment, we're paying wages, we're paying Social Security, we're paying a lot of things that we don't need to be paying. We need to subcontract that out, and we need to compete, okay? Not one person brings in the contract. We need like 3 to 5 different competitors so we can take a look at what they're saying, look at the budget, and then go back to them and say, you know what, let's see if we can go a little lower. So there's plenty of ways to make sure that we can fix what we're spending, and I am looking at cutting what we're spending. Thank you.
Those are the opening statements, ladies and gentlemen, and the question from me and Dave, Mr. Peppinger. I understand it's time for table talk, so we'll get to that here momentarily.
Well, we're like 10 minutes early, so that's efficiency. So what we'll do is that will give us some more time for tables to ask questions on the back end of this. So what we'll do is we'll start that 10 minutes right now. For those that are new to City Club, what is Table Talk? So Table Talk is the opportunity where you can introduce yourselves at the table, come up with a question, and then appoint an ambassador. The ambassador for your table is the person who gets the good fortune to stand up and raise their hand and ask the question. And then if they go too long, we beat them over the head with this mic. Okay, so kidding, we won't do that. So anyways, we'll break for 10 minutes and I'll be right back. All right, so as I said at the beginning, we are committed to civil discourse. So we ask that you keep your questions respectful and brief. And avoid making statements. We understand there has to be a little context, but we don't need an autobiography read to us. So please be aware of that. As you can see from the attendance, there's a large number of guests here. I'm sure everyone has a question. So please get to your question as quickly as possible. We'll have 2 mics walking around. Please make sure to raise your hand if you are the table ambassador. If we get through all the tables, we will go through another round of questions. So as we're going through it, make sure you're kind of asking some questions of yourself. So are we all ready? Show of hands, who's ready to go? Okay, we got like 5 people. All right, we got everyone, so
Louis Madalich, and the question we came up in the last seconds of debate was, what, as county commissioners, do you see as or what are you going to do about stone container and the problems that exist with the settling ponds and the pollution that once vibrant industry that we no longer have created? So that was the nature of the question.
How do we do this?
Yeah, we'll start with Josh, and then you'll do 2 minutes, and then we'll have a rebuttal.
Okay, great. Thanks, Louis. That's a great question. So as you all probably well know, Old Stone Container, the Smurfit Stone site, is wrapped up in the Superfund process. The process itself is called by people in the know the Superfund snake. So you start at one end and then you wiggle your way all the way through. Right now we're at the spot, and I'm going to use regular language rather than Superfund language, that we're in diagnosis. And when I say we, it's the EPA who's running the show, and the EPA is standing between a group of folks who are called the PRPs, the principally responsible parties. These are the folks who are going to eventually have to pay the cleanup. On the other side, you have the community. There's a community, a CAG, it's a community group out in Frenchtown, and also us, the commissioners. So it's kind of an adversarial thing with EPA in the middle. The PRPs, of course, the folks who are going to pay for this, want to see as little testing as possible, because that's going to save them money, because they're on the hook for it. And they want this done super quickly with the least amount of money spent. That's their goal. Understandably so, they have to pay for it. Over on the community side, we want to see this cleaned up completely and thoroughly, and the riparian area restored, and the area redeveloped, jobs, housing, the entire thing. What we've been doing, how we've been doing this, is riding herd on the EPA. We demanded that the EPA go to quarterly testing on water, and do a heterogeneous sampling, so lots of different wells, understanding that the water table underneath Smurfit is not the same everywhere. They were attempting to do shortcuts because I believe the EPA wasn't quite ready to make demands on the PRPs that could land them in court. So I personally reached out to Casey Becker, the district administrator in Denver at the EPA, and she was really receptive. We were able to meet with her and Helena not too long ago, and we got them to go to quarterly sampling. Yeah, this is going to take a while. Superfund stuff takes forever, and that's not because of the county. What I can promise you on our side is we are going to lean into an absolute commitment to get this thing cleaned up for real, not halfway, but for real, so someday there can be housing and real development out there. Thanks.
Get right on top of that, Mike, Kris. There you go.
Okay. Superfund site. Yes, I am on the board there at the CAG, and it has been a very, very long process, and it is basically a circle of government officials circling and circling and circling, and nothing is getting done. I remember when it was operational. It's unfortunate what Enron did to us and what did to Montana Power, and Smurfit Stone is a victim of that. And it was bought. The gentleman tried to recycle a lot of the stuff there and came up against a lot of headwind with the county. And because of that, the gentleman decided to stop paying his property taxes. And so because of that, the county gets it, because the county wouldn't work with them. So this is a county problem. And once again, we're not working with business owners like Pyramid, Charlie Park, who decided to say, you know what, forget Missoula County, I'm out, headed to Granite. We're losing jobs, and nobody in this county really gives a toot. And you and me, as the property owner, get to pay the property taxes, not the businesses anymore. So I want to see it cleaned up properly, of course, but we're now on our second round of testing, and I want to see it sped up. And as a county commissioner, I will put my foot on all the DEQ, FWP, and anybody that I can to get this process moved. That's 3,200 acres that we keep yapping about, oh, not affordable housing, we don't have this, we don't have that. Well, you know what? It's 3,200 acres we could open up. So I'm sick and tired of the government bureaucracy, and I'm here to put my foot down.
Next question.
Okay. Oh, you're going to hold the mic for me. Thank you. So this is a follow-up question regarding the tax cuts question that Peter had asked. This question is for Kris, and I'll ask a question to Josh as well, so you'll both get a chance to respond. But the specific question for Kris is, how does subcontracting the maintenance for roadways constitute a tax cut? Like, you still got to do the maintenance, you still got to do the contracting for those people. How does that constitute a tax cut? And then the question for Josh is, Josh, what is the most wasteful spending at the county right now? Like, in your budget, like, where is that fat that can be trimmed? Those are the two questions.
So when you talk about subcontractors, what I'm saying is Public Works right now has too many employees that need to be cut because they are not subcontractors. Okay, so that right there will cut some of the budget. Okay, the subcontractors are the ones that do the road work, and those are the ones that we need to negotiate when it comes to bids. Okay, right now the county has their own division that basically works the roads as their own construction crew. Okay, that should not be how we run the county.
Okay, Josh, your
Thanks.
question.
Kris, thanks for the question. It's good to see you here today. So I want to pivot a little bit on this issue of road maintenance. Our Public Works Department often, not always, but often does construction projects. Mostly what they do is maintenance. But I wish they did more construction projects because they can do construction projects at 2/3 of the cost of a contractor. When we lean into contractors, we pay more. That means property taxes go up. One of the ways we get thrifty, one of the ways we cut the fat is not by engaging with contractors and doing things ourselves, like using millings or redoing the parking lot at Big Sky Park, or we redid the parking lot at Fort Missoula at the Fort Missoula Museum. If we'd gone to contractors, we would have paid more. How do we cut the fat in Public Works? By doing more ourselves and by doing things like remixing dust abatement so we can use less chemical to get more done. We use milling so we don't have to do so much dust abatement. Our cutting the fat is by being super thrifty with our workers, and that's what we do.
Do I get a chance to rebuttal that?
Yes, go ahead.
Real fast.
30 seconds.
Payroll tax is something we have to pay, okay? We have to pay Social Security. These are things we pay to employees that retirement. These are things we should not be paying, and that's where I see that we're going to have to get rid of some people.
Next question, please.
Hello. So my question is, how would you lead and motivate county employees?
Josh, go ahead.
Can we repeat the question, please?
Yes, what's your name? Amber said, how would we lead and motivate county employees? Can we get that right? Yeah. So I would say I'm already there, and for me, the way I do this is being fully present with people, always listening and trying really hard to understand who they are as individuals, making sure they have the tools they need to do their job and then get out of their way. This means trusting people, giving people autonomy, and being there for them when they need something, and standing up for them if they're taking an attack they shouldn't have to take. That's how I do it, and I would say if you were to chat, I'm going to gamble here, if you were to chat with people who work for Missoula County, they would say that's true. Thanks.
Kris, your response to the question.
How to motivate people here at the county. Josh pretty much actually summed it up. You know, treat people with respect, show them that you care, listen to them, take time out of your day and hear what they have to say, because their voice counts, they're part of your community, they're a constituent of yours. So all around, I also think, maybe doing like a Friday meeting or something like that to where you hear everybody's input. So that's how I feel.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, thank you very much. Since the 80s and then the 90s and ever since, Missoula City and county residents have continued to vote for open space lands and recreation to be acquired by the city and county alike. Every local economic analysis suggests that investment in outdoor access and recreation brings a lot more money into our county than we spend to buy and manage these properties. So my question to both of you is, do you think that's true? Is this what you've read and record as well? And why sell those assets where citizens are supportive, the economics it helps us out, and this is access for not only our citizens, but tourists who make a big part of our local economy as well? Thank you.
Start with Kris on that. Go ahead.
Sure. I am 100% for open lands, and I know that Marshall Mountain was purchased with open lands funds. But unfortunately, we the citizens did not know that's what that was going to be used for. We believed it would be used for, something up the Rattlesnake or up Grant Creek, to where it's just a trail, not to where we're maintaining a ski resort, okay? It costs money to maintain a ski resort, especially one that's not bringing in any revenue. So when we sell it, we can also use some of that money to, yes, buy some more open lands funds, but also in selling it, we'll also be collecting revenue as a tax base from whoever owns it, and that person will also be collecting revenue as they operate it as a business. So I am for open lands, yes, and I do believe that it brings in tourism here that does help out our economy. But nobody's using Marshall Mountain, and it needs to be sold.
Josh, please.
Thanks, and thanks for the question. Yeah, we have a fantastic tradition here of voluntarily raising our taxes. I know that sounds crazy. Voluntarily raising our taxes so we can have an open space lands inventory. And it's not just because we appreciate the views and the vistas. It is, as the questioner noted, this is part of our economic engine. Missoula's economic engine is the place in and of itself. People move here, visit here, come here by choice because this place is so wonderful. They don't come for a single industry job. People come because this place is what it is. And a big part of that is our access to public land. And this is part of a long Montana tradition about public land. I would also note that hundreds and hundreds of people go to Marshall Mountain. And Marshall Mountain had been public for more than half a century, and we were able to keep it public. And this didn't happen because 3 county commissioners were in a corner somewhere and decided it would be so. This happened after 18 months of process with the city and the county and 2 boards, a city board and a county board full of subject matter experts. And this is in our tradition, and it continues to pay us back. I believe we'll also see a return on this investment, not just in dollars, but in the quality of the resource. In that right now, I'm going to say the PBR, Patty Canyon, Blue Mountain, and the Rattlesnake, are pretty crushed. We're loving these places to death, and it's hard to find new ones, and here is another one. We're relieving some pressure and creating yet another venue, and now we see people from across the country come to Marshall Mountain for mountain biking. So I'm glad it's there. Thanks.
Next question.
Hi, Nancy Picard. I'm with Partners Hope Foundation. Thanks for being here today. We were talking about how government is to serve the public good. How do you define that?
Josh, we'll start with you.
Yeah, the public good. That is the greatest good for the greatest number. And I believe we invest in the public good, and when we do so, we actually reap economic benefits. This kind of rhymes with what I was just talking about. We have a high amenity community here. We also have a high value community, and the two are linked. People choose to be in Missoula, and then they choose to make a livelihood here because this is such a wonderful place to be. Wonderful place to be means we have a lot of public goods. That's everything from public access to public land to things like trails or a revitalized downtown or a fantastic medical system. We create these things. And by virtue of their existence, people want to be here, want to make a livelihood here. So as part of being on the county commission, we approve Big Sky Trust Fund grants, which come from the state Department of Commerce through MEP, and then we approve them. These are grants if a company creates a certain amount of jobs. And truthfully, our role in this is pretty minor. It's great, though, in that we get to contact and have conversation with CEOs who are choosing to move here. And I always ask them the same question. Why Missoula? You could be anywhere. Why Missoula? And one of them, not that long ago, had this great answer, and it is stuck in my head and will be forevermore. He said, being in Missoula confers upon us a hiring advantage because people want to be here. When we create public goods, people want to be here. And when people want to be here, not only does quality of life increase, our economy increases too.
I apologize. Can you reread that question?
We were talking about how government is there to serve the public good. How do you define that?
Yes, the public good, I believe, is roads. I believe bridges, which right now we have 3 bridges that the infrastructure isn't doing too good on. I mean, McClay Bridge, they had to shut that down. And luckily, nobody out that way had any real serious emergencies to where, you know, they died because the bridge was closed down. We have 2 bridges out in Seeley Lake that definitely need to be taken care of, but they're not. I definitely think it's the job of the county commissioners to take care of our infrastructure, roads, bridges, transportation. Pet projects are secondary. As a county commissioner, I think it's our job to make sure our constituents are happy with the job we're doing. Unfortunately, we have places like Condon, Seeley Lake, Potomac, Lolo that want to secede from Missoula. That doesn't sound like we have a bunch of happy people in our community. I mean, I just got done going in the parade and my kids were asking me why people were flipping them off. That doesn't make me too happy about my community. I have to explain to them that why people were doing that. So as a county commissioner, I think it's time to focus on the budget, not pet projects. People talk about the property tax all the time. Well, I mean, got to cut pet projects. We need jobs here. We need good paying jobs, and we do lack those. So with that being said, like I said, I am for making sure we can afford to live in our homes. I do not want to take anyone's homes anymore. That's what I do for a living, and I continue to do it, but I'd like to see it kind of stop. That's why I'm against the expansion of FEMA, which I hope somebody asks.
I'll ask it. Yeah, I'd love to get some, we would like to get some clarification from both candidates with regard to this idea of not working with FEMA with regard to changing the floodplain. Is that going to impact existing homes? Is that new construction? Please, clarification.
Okay, we'll start with Kris.
Okay, so right now, we just found out that Missoula County, in working with FEMA and in expanding the floodplains, that it will affect 1,857 single properties. Okay, so what will that do? That'll put those properties into the floodplains. That will increase their flood insurance. Some people may not be able to afford the increase in flood insurance. That then equals you either sell your home and leave, or you go into foreclosure. Those are basically your 2 options. I don't agree with working with FEMA and expanding our floodplains. I do know that there are homes down Tower Street and down 3rd Street that are that do get flooded, and a lot of that actually has to do with the removal of the dams on the Bonner. But anyways, I am not wanting to see people lose their homes. Now, I know that Mr. Slotnick will tell you that FEMA is going to do this anyways. I have spoken to Austin Knutson's office, and they have told me that they are in the process of suing FEMA currently, and if that I wanted to go after FEMA because they came into our county, they would join in for a lawsuit to push FEMA out to not hurt homeowners, because property rights are in our Constitution and they are not to be taken away. And as a broker, that is something that I believe full-heartedly when I sell properties and I have clients that buy properties, property rights. So thank you for your time.
Okay, Josh, go ahead.
Thanks a lot. So I'll give you a description of the current situation. So the state, that's a DNRC, is doing the mapping of our current floodplain, and FEMA is their partner in paying for some of this work. The county isn't expanding or contracting the floodplain. The county is given the opportunity to acknowledge the change that DNRC and FEMA are cataloging. And they're creating these new maps based on an understanding of hydrology and the channel migration zone, because rivers move, and on new elevations. That means measuring the height of the earth next to the river. These elevations are being measured by LIDAR, which we are told is far more accurate than the old method. Lots of properties are affected. Some of them are now out of the floodplain. Some of them are now in, depending on the reach of the river. And we're looking at, and not we, DNRC and FEMA are looking at the Clark Fork River and the Bitterroot in Missoula County and part of Rock Creek. FEMA and DNRC are going to create these maps regardless of our approval or not, our acknowledgement or not. Our adoption is the actual correct word. If we don't adopt these maps and your home is now in the floodplain and you have a mortgage, your mortgage lender will demand that you get flood insurance. If we don't adopt the maps, you are on your own for that flood insurance. If we do adopt the maps, you can get insurance, subsidized insurance from the federal government. If we don't adopt the maps and there is a flood, we don't get any money to respond to that flood. Just a little while ago, we had that horrible windstorm between the city and the county, a couple $1 million of expenses. That's covered by FEMA. Now, I'm not here to defend FEMA and say they're fantastic all the time, but they did reimburse our expenses. If we do not adopt their maps and we have another flood, and we will have another flood, we don't get any money. In the name of public safety, we kind of have to do this. There was more I wanted to say, but time's up.
Hi, Peggy Kuiper, College of Business, University of Montana. On the Marshall Mountain topic, could you talk about what types of events, if you didn't sell Marshall Mountain, you could attract there to drive economic impact, new dollars coming into the community? Second part to the question is there opportunity to adopt soft taxes, new tourism taxes, to fund part of Marshall Mountain as well, and that doesn't impact taxpayers in our community?
Start with you, Josh. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So do the first one, and then first half of that and the second half of that. So right now, I want to get the acronym wrong, but it's something to do with the National Collegiate Mountain Biking Association is having their national tournaments, mountain bike contests or competitions in Marshall. There's probably somebody here who's a mountain biker who could say it more accurately than me. And it's not just them. People are coming. This is from all over the place. It will be, when it's all built out, with a whole bunch of private money from the Friends of Marshall Mountain, a world-class mountain biking site. Whenever you have a world-class recreation site, people are coming and spending money. The second thing you asked about, which is something that I'm really excited about pursuing, how can we tax our tourists? And we absolutely need to do this, not because tourists are a source of revenue, but because right now, we pay for their services. So in 2022, we had 2.5 million tourists in Missoula County, an average length of stay of 6.5 days. We have 120,000 residents. That means on any given day, we had to pay sheriff's deputies to take care of tourists. We had to have 911 operators. We had to take care of roads to take care of tourists. We are subsidizing services for our guests. We need to figure out a way to actually have them pay for those services. We can't do this on our own. The rules around taxation are at the legislature, but we have been working with, I described some of the folks I've been working with around, is there a way we can create a local option where people voted in and we tax tourist items? It's a long ways from happening. The legislature would have to give us the thumbs up, but that's what it would look like. And in order to do this, what I would want to see, if I could snap my fingers and make it happen, is that we would tax things that tourists want. We would use that money for one-to-one property tax relief. So if we generate $1 million from tourists, we take $1 million off of our overhead. And that we share some of that revenue with the non-assessed counties, because people from rural counties come to Missoula a lot. And they should benefit from tourists as well. But we're a long ways from there. We have to get the legislature to come out for it.
Kris, please.
Let's put up an amphitheater. Let's spend more money. County owns it. We own it. And let's do what we want with it, right? But then if we put in an amphitheater and we have a concert, and let's say we bring some great singer to town, like, I don't know, P. Diddy, and something happens here, then and it happens on Marshall Mountain, then we get lawsuits. You, the taxpayer, and myself are on the hook for it. So, I mean, hey, if you want to be on the hook for things, that's cool.
All right. Next question.
Hi, Coulter Nuanez. Thanks for being here, guys. I'd like to ask both of you, I guess first with Josh, explain the relationship between the city and the county, especially when that pertains to property taxes.
Sure.
And then for Kris, how can you work with the city to sort of mitigate property taxes in your efforts to cut property taxes?
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's a great question. So the county collects taxes for all the taxing jurisdictions. So that means we collect taxes for the city. It's not our money, we give it back to the city. We collect taxes for MCPS, for fire districts, for special districts. This is in the Constitution. It's not that we decided this is how it's supposed to be. The county collects all that money and then disperses it. And interestingly enough, there are some services that city residents pay the county for. The big ones are that if you live in the city, you pay the county for elections because the city doesn't have an elections department. You pay the county for Office of Emergency Management. You pay the county for the sheriff's office too. And you think, wait a minute, we have the MPD, but the sheriff does some things. We have the jail. The city doesn't have a jail. We also have the coroner. So city residents pay the county for some county services, but no county residents pay for any city services. I know it gets a little wonky there, but that's the essence of the relationship in terms of taxes. Are there things we can do to keep taxes down? Absolutely, and I'm really psyched about some of them that we routinely do. Unfortunately, these are a little bit quiet. Public Works, which has been a lot of conversation here today. We share machinery with the city. We share routes where if our folks are out doing maintenance and they're right next to a city route, they'll take care of something for the city. And if they're right next to ours, they'll take care of it for us. So we don't have to drive long distances to do a little piece of work. And this is really because we are committed to cooperating. So city government and county government really work well together, and that has filtered down to our two public works directors, Shane Stack and Jeremy Keene, who routinely, regularly share resources, and all taxpayers benefit.
Josh. Kris. Oh, Kris, I'm sorry.
So yes, working with the city, we need to have a good partnership with the city. There are some things in the county we do pay for the city. I believe the Johnson Street shelter we pay. We do pay a few more things in the city, but I think having a good relationship is what we need. When you collect money, though, I think it does need to get dispersed properly, and that comes to the mills. And so I'm looking at a school, DeSmit, right now, where half of the school is in the city, half of the school is in the county. And so their school is actually kind of getting shafted when it comes to money that they should be receiving. And that's something that I think as a county commissioner and as the city we should be working with, because they only get half the TIF money. I know recently here they didn't even get their full mill, and the public school system had to sue Josh and the county commissioners. And in doing so, they say there was no harm, no foul, but I know DeSmit School lost out on $10,000. Nobody reimbursed them, so they had to take money from other funds, which then hurts the student body. But I do believe that we need to work side by side with the city and make sure that we have our public schools and everything else properly funded.
Any other questions?
Time for one more.
Real, yeah, one more, then we have to do our closing statement.
David Blair. Cautionary about, curious your reaction about the mill site out of Frenchtown. The difficulty with our current rubric of environmental requirements is that we can measure extremely small substances in the environment. And the way our policy works, if we can measure it, we then say, well, we have to clean it up because we demand perfection. And I think it's a good example. In the Willamette River, Portland, the PRPs are on the hook for billions of dollars of potentially digging out the lower river. The only risk to human health in that part of the river, it's completely swimmable, is the people that eat fish more than 5 times a week. out of that part of the river. That's the only risk to human health. And so I just, anyway.
All right, we'll start with you, Jeff.
Sure. Yeah, I hear you. Perfection could be the enemy of the good. Also, mediocrity is the enemy of the good. Not doing quarterly testing in an area where we have huge variations in seasonal groundwater is mediocre. And I'm not saying Smurfit needs to be as clean as your kitchen, but it needs to be clean enough that we could feel good about having housing there and seeing it redeveloped. So we're looking not at perfection, but at thresholds that will damage human health. So I would love to see this done. And actually, I think Kris and I agree on this. Faster, sooner, the better, and leaning into it as hard as we can. And that is what I've been doing. And we are pushing up against a big force with the EPA and the PRPs. There's a lot of money and weight there, but we have moved them. So there you go.
So one thing that bothers me as a fisherman is they came out and said basically, don't eat the fish there in the Clark Fork because they're polluted by Smurfit Stone. Some of that analysis didn't take into play, the septic or the sewer system here in Missoula, how some of it goes into the Clark Fork. I believe more dilution, less pollution. So I don't really believe that the Smurfit Stone site's pollution is going to start causing cancer or killing people. So yes, I want to see it cleaned up. I mean, if you can start showing me people dying or people getting cancer all of a sudden, then yeah. But if not, let's get on with our normal lives. Let's stop taxing people out of their homes, and let's get moving forward. Forward, not in reverse, but forward and forward.
Gentlemen, we need to have 2-minute closing statements, and so we'll start with Kris Culdice. Please go ahead.
I would like to thank everybody once again for coming out. Thank you for taking your time out of the day. Thank you, Missoula Club, for hosting us. The election is in 3 weeks. I know we both hope that you guys vote. Either one, doesn't matter. But thank you, though, very much for your time, and you have a great day.
All right. So I made some notes for my 2-minute closing and then realized what I had written was actually a written thing, not notes for a talk. So I'm going to just read this, and hopefully you like it. It's called Last Thoughts on Commissioning. This is a job for a generalist who's good at languages. This is a job, let me explain the refrain. This is a job where you are surrounded by true subject matter experts, engineers, attorneys, accountants, planners, land managers. You need to speak to them in their mother tongue so you can get the job done for everyone. This is a job where you need to be conversationally fluent in the criminal justice system and elections. You need to speak road and bridge funding and septic permitting, community mental health and zoning and subdivisions, public sector financing, revenue bonds, conduit financing, geo bonds, the deep math mechanics of property taxes, and animal control. This is a job where you need to stop on a dime in the chip aisle at the grocery store and explain tax increment financing. This is a job where revolution means respect for the institution, so watch yourself when you're hucking people under the bus. County government is us. This is a job where you need to understand how city government works, state government, and the legislature. And there's no handbook or Duolingo for learning these languages. You have to have both an aptitude and an attitude for it. Attitude means being ego-less. Ego-less, not under duress. Ego-less enough to be good with learning in public, asking questions in public that betray your incomplete understanding in pursuit of a more complete understanding. With ego enough to keep going until you have squashed the absolute best out of a no-win situation. This is a job where you need to understand how to build partnerships, write a grant, hire and fire well, shepherd a vision through a group, build a leveraged funding stack, turn an idea into a reality. This is a job for someone who will work without ceasing to broaden and inform their perspective and question their conclusions. This is a job for someone who can be comfortable speaking in front of a couple hundred engaged leaders at City Club and just as comfortable having coffee one-on-one with a person who sees the world completely differently. This is a job for someone with endless energy for intractable problems. This is a job for someone like me.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Josh. Josh has got to race out of here. He's flying away, so. Anyways, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Kris. I appreciate you coming out. Couple quick announcements. Next month, November 18th is the next forum. We will not be in this room. We will be at Missoula Public Library. Okay? So, it's been a long time coming, working on this, but anyways, thank you to the board for putting it all together. Remember, it's November 18th. Please register for that. We do have limited space, okay? So, what else am I forgetting? Oh, on the slides, I think there's one slide up there for the voting rules, how to register to vote. We are 3 weeks to the day before you have to vote. And there's even a QR code for those techies that know how to get that. So anyways, enjoy your day. Thank you all for coming.